Team Canada just pulled off a massive win against Slovenia, which puts them into the semi-finals in FIBA Cup World action, which is a place they've never been before. So we'll break down this game, what teams they have coming up, and how some Toronto Raptors are playing in this FIBA tournament. It's not just Team Canada, but Dennis Schroeder's also been cooking up a little bit. Had a rough game against Latvia today, but lots of updates regarding FIBA action, as well as Norman Powell speaking out on the Toronto Raptors and the trade that happened a few seasons ago for him going to Portland for Gary Trent Jr. So he had some interesting comments around that. Lots of stuff to break down. Without further ado, jump into the first topic of discussion. The first thing we're taking a look at is Canada's massive win over Slovenia. Now, this was an exhilarating game. This was a matchup that had a lot of Canadian fans excited. We broke down in yesterday's video how Canada got the big win over Spain, the former FIBA Cup World Champions, that inserted them into the Olympic qualification. So now Team Canada is assured that they're going to be in Olympic action come Paris next year. So that's positive, that's exciting, but we want to win this FIBA World Cup. And one of the toughest matchups that we have sort of coming up, and every single game at this point in this sort of stage of the tournament will be difficult, but is against Slovenia. And it was, as they have Luka Doncic. They have one of the world's best basketball players in the NBA, Europe, wherever you want to put it. Luka Doncic is an elite competitor, and he just elevates this team. And throughout the first half of this game, it was back and forth. It was an extremely chippy game. Things were happening left, right, and center. Memes, players getting thrown out. But Canada, with an electrifying second half, with massive performances from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, as well as RJ Barrett, they got the W. And one guy that's been trashed on a lot, Dylan Brooks, he also performed very, very well in this game. You can look at the box score in this one. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, right, in this game, ended up putting up 31 points on extremely efficient shooting, right, 14 to 16 from the free throw line, only 1 of 4 from the three-point stripe, but, 7 to 8 from twos, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, and just watching Shai play. I mean, we all know how elite of a mid-range shooter he is. We all know how nice his bag is in terms of getting those mid-range jump shots and all that type of stuff. But the little things that Shai does. There's moments in this game where Slovenia, they're pushing for their Olympic qualification. Team Canada, they were already assured an Olympic spot. Slovenia is a team that plays with a lot of passion, a lot of energy, have a lot of talent on this team, despite the fact that, a lot of their guys aren't NBA players, but European talents, play in the EuroLeague, and obviously combined with Luka Doncic, everyone gets elevated, but they were pushing extremely hard. They were being chippy, they were going at everything, and Shai, just whatever the team needed something to sort of elevate them. They needed a desperate rebound. They had a possession where things weren't going down. They needed sort of a game-changing shot, right? The Slovenians are on a little bit of a run. Just a momentum swing, a momentum killer. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander did it for this Team Canada squad, and man, it was something to behold. I mean, it wasn't just the shots. It wasn't just the dimes he was throwing, but this man rebounded. Right? There's a couple times there's 3 or 4 blue shirts underneath the rim, underneath the basket on defense and on offense, and Shai was just able to will his way to that basketball, secure that board, and is a guy that, looking at him right now, going up against, an MVP candidate in Luka Doncic, I would not be shocked come this upcoming season. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I mean, he had ridiculous stats last year, but he could be an MVP candidate this upcoming season. I mean, just last season was 31 points per game, 5 rebounds, 5.5 assists, efficient shooting out there from the field, playing strong defense, and I said the rebounding is something that has really opened my eyes to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's game in this tournament, but man, give this man his flowers. The Team Canada, we have a Canadian that is, since Steve Nash, for the first time, that we have a player that could be argued as one of the best players in the world. So shout out to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and going forward in this tournament, we have the best player on the basketball court, game in, game out. That's just how it goes, because we have Shai on the roster. No one on the USA, no one on Germany, no one on Serbia without Nikola Jokic, obviously on their team right now, right? None of those guys are better than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So that's the one thing Team Canada has over all the rest of the competition, right, for the rest of this tournament. So hopefully we're able to pull off a couple more W's and bring home some gold to Team Canada. But he wasn't the only guy that played remarkable in this game. RJ Barrett probably had his best game of the tournament. I know he had some fairly efficient nights during the exhibition series, but basically 24 points for RJ Barrett, 8 of 16 from the field. Still not that great in the half court, but the way he was exploding in transition, some of the dunks that he had, 9 rebounds in this game as well, but pretty solid defense. RJ Barrett's nice for him to get out of that slump that, especially in the, I believe it was the Brazil game, just really didn't have everything going, didn't have everything put together. In the half court, there's still a lot to be left to be desired for RJ Barrett, but man, the way he uses athleticism, his ability to get to the rim with that left hand, leaking out his speed, especially against the Slovenians, who are more of a three-point shooting, pace and space sort of team. You're not that known for high uber athletes that are clamping people up left, right, and center. You saw the athleticism of RJ Barrett put on full display in this game. So shout out to RJ for sort of turning things around in this one. And the rest of the squad, Lou Dort, I thought stat line isn't that big, but played some very, very solid defense on Luka. And one guy that, I've been a Dillon Brooks fan. You guys are kind of roasting me. There were some rumors earlier in the summer that the Toronto Raptors might end up landing Dillon Brooks. Now, I think his contract is fairly extreme. It's a lot of money, but I'd be open to Dillon Brooks. I was open to Dillon Brooks joining the squad, even though Memphis basically said, hey, there's no way you're coming back, all that type of stuff. But this tournament has really even warmed my heart up even more to Dillon Brooks. Obviously, I already liked him because he was Canadian, even with all the off-court antics and all that type of stuff. But man, his confidence, he's delivering in this game. And sure, he got thrown out. You got the full Dillon Brooks experience, but there were moments tonight where he was just playing phenomenal, picture-perfect defense on Luka Doncic, who is probably the toughest one-on-one player to guard in the entire world right now. So shout out to Dillon Brooks, man. And still have 14 points in this game. Right shot, knocked down some threes. He's been really efficient in this tournament, which is, a little not usually in his wheelhouse, not usually in his repertoire. So the top guys played really well for Canada. Kelly Olynyk, the bigs, Dwight Powell. Sure, they're not perfect big men or anything along those lines, but they did their jobs, getting rebounds. We weren't killed on the glass by anything like that. But Nickeil Alexander-Walker also had a very big night. Hit some extremely timely shots, spacing the floor, driving the lane. Showed off his bag a little bit when they were overplaying the three-point shot. He had a couple of nice slashes, nice drives. But Team Canada is well around it right now, and they're executing well. Jordi Fernandez is doing a great job coaching the squad. I mean, keeping Luka Doncic to only 21 points, 8 to 20 from the field, frustrating him to the point where he ended up getting thrown out. That is huge. That is huge, sort of a huge collective effort. Dillon Brooks also got thrown out. I should have pulled up the graphic, but apparently I saw a picture of him holding boxing gloves. I don't know if that's a meme or something like that, but he was out there in the hallways, fired up after Team Canada, or after he got thrown out. Canada ended up getting the W. So shout out to Team Canada. And in regards to other players of interest for this channel, Dennis Schroeder's playing for Team Germany, and he's had a remarkable tournament, and I wanted to give a little highlight of him, but basically it was more of a low light now because you see Germany ended up being Latvia, so they're going to face off against the U.S. in the next game, and Canada obviously beat Slovenia, so now we go up against Croatia. So, interesting matchups here for the semifinals. Dennis Schroeder did not have the greatest performance against Latvia. Very inefficient shooting for this game, not what he was really delivering for basically the rest of the tournament. We saw a couple games of Germany versus Canada, but only 9 points for Schroeder, 4 of 26 from the field, 8 of 14 from twos, 0 of 8 from the three-point line. And I saw some people jokingly, or maybe not jokingly, say it looks like a Fred VanVleet stat line. I don't like throwing shade on Fred VanVleet like that, but Schroeder's been amazing this entire tournament. He's been one of the most efficient, best players in international action, so hopefully he's able to turn around against the U.S. Would love to see Germany end up beating the U.S. and then a Schroeder versus Canada final. So let me know what you guys think about all this FIBA action. Exciting stuff happening if you're a Raptors or Team Canada fan. Really, really fun stuff. Definitely tune in for the rest of these games. Our next one is against Serbia, so exciting stuff happening there. But the next thing we're taking a look at is Norman Powell speaking out on the Toronto Raptors. Now, this happened a few days ago. As I mentioned, I've been sort of off the map a little bit, off the North American map, been in Europe, so didn't get to record or cover much of the stuff that happened over the past couple of weeks. But we had an interesting comment come out from Norman Powell, basically talking about his trade away from the Toronto Raptors, his history there, and his expectations, basically saying that I didn't want to leave Toronto, I wanted to stay. That core we had of Fred, Pascal, OG, and him could have been what the Boston Celtics are today. And now, I saw him catch a little bit of shade for this, especially where, Tatum is obviously the biggest name, the most talented player in this list, but looking at it in hindsight, and this is my take sort of when it happened, and this is not to throw shade on the star boy Gary Trent Jr. I think there's potential there. He didn't necessarily take the major leaps we were hoping that he would, once we went in the younger direction of a Norman Powell, but I don't think the Raptors have as brutal of a season, especially last year. I don't think they have as much of a roller coaster of a season they had during the season prior, right? I think with Norman Powell, we win a lot more games than we do Gary Trent Jr. Regardless of what you think of Norman Powell, Gary Trent Jr., who you think is the better player, I think Norm's play style is just what he does out there on the court complemented the group of Fred, OG, and Pascal more smoothly than a Gary Trent Jr. Yes, both of them are strong shooters. Yes, both of them are guys that are inconsistent. Norman Powell definitely got better in his last season and a half with the Toronto Raptors, but Norman Powell was an elite. At the moment we traded Norman Powell away to the Portland Trailblazers, he was shooting 45% from behind the 3-point line. The team was, we were in Tampa, so it was kind of a messy sort of season down there. Regardless, I don't think much good was going to happen for this team without a center playing in Tampa that season, whatever. But the season following, the Raptors kind of needed more floor spacing. They needed more guys that can stretch, and Gary Trent Jr. is definitely an elite three-point shooter, but he's more of a sort of ISO creation scorer, where Norm is more of a complete three and drive guy, right? Like buckets at the rim, buckets from the three-point line. You're not getting a lot of sort of midi sort of shot creation stuff from Norm Powell. I thought with the roster as constructed, with Fred VanVleet, obviously likes to create and dribble and these types of things. Pascal Siakam likes to sort of create these own shots. We end up landing Scotty Barnes. We end up landing different guys, but I don't know. I just feel like Norman Powell is more of a consistent sort of catch and shoot 3-point shooter. It's something the Raptors were lacking over the past couple seasons. And Gary Trent Jr., yes, he can do that, but Norman Powell just does that specific skill a little bit better, brings a little bit more of a burst, was able to play off the bench. So I don't know. I'm not saying it was a bad trade. I'm not saying it was a perfect trade. I'm not saying that the Raptors would have definitely taken the route of the Boston Celtics, who, yes, they've been great in recent seasons, but definitely have had their ups and downs with their current core group as well. But I don't know. Norman Powell played really well in that Boston Celtics series, had that sort of core group. I would love to see Norman Powell back on the Toronto Raptors. That's sort of my take there. It still hurts me because I like Gary Trent Jr., but Norman Powell is one of my favorite players. Would have been nice to see him sort of grow with this group. But Fred VanVleet's gone now, and we have Gary Trent Jr. in here at this lineup. Dennis Schroeder's running that backcourt here at this point as well. But let me know what you guys think in hindsight of that Norman Powell, Gary Trent Jr. trade. But folks, you guys are the best for making this far. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.